What's good, family? Let's cut straight to it. Kamala didn't just lose, but she got smoked, right? And really the Democrats along with her.
The Associated Press has called the presidency for Republican Donald Trump. Trump has 277, and Democrat Kamala Harris has 200. He's also the first president elected after being convicted on dozens of felony charges. Trump campaigned heavily on several issues, among them reform of the U.S. immigration system and the economy, both of which he framed as areas in which Americans are suffering during a Democratic presidential administration.
But the thing is, it's just not about her. It's really about the Democrats and the strategy and the direction that the party is headed, and really the misconnection with the people, right? And so over the past couple weeks since the election, I've written down a couple of my thoughts. I have about 14 reasons on why the Democratic Party lost this election. It's hard to say Kamala lost this election because Kamala showed up and she did what she was supposed to do with the amount of time that she had. On the other hand, she didn't really have a lot of time to run. Stuff was coming out late. Also, I feel like they didn't uplift some of the everyday issues that people were facing, the real concerns like the economic struggles, and also pushing messages that didn't really resonate with the broader American public and voters. And even people on their side started to be like, oh man, that ain't really in alignment with what I'm feeling or what I'm trying to do. And it's just based on like a lot of the people that I talk to, a lot of people I have interactions with, a lot of the things that I've seen online, even looking at like some statistical data and exit polls and stuff like that, right? There's a bigger story behind the L that they just took. And this one, we got to unpack this for the culture and also beyond. Definitely an emphasis on beyond. So yeah, let's get into this post-election breakdown on what went wrong and also what are some of the ways that we can move forward from this. But before we actually get into it, I do want to let y'all know that I am an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. My views lean left, but I just don't agree with everything that goes on in the Democratic Party to the point where I feel like I should associate myself fully with the party and like make that a part of my like voter identity. Is like, nah, like I don't really agree with a lot of stuff that they do, a lot of the tactics and even some of the history. So just want to make that clear before we get into everything. Yeah, cool. All right, let's go. Reason number one, right out of the gate, before we even got started, it was poor VP visibility, right? When we compare Kamala's vice presidency to Obama's vice presidency, one of the biggest things that I can remember, right, is that Biden felt like he was supporting Obama and that he was helping Obama do things that Obama just couldn't do on his own. That was our perspective on Biden. It's like, oh, dang, Biden is helping this black man get into the doors and make the connections that we needed him to make in order to get the things done for the people, right? Kamala, on the other hand, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I just felt like, where's Kamala? I felt that a lot. Like I would forget about her for like months. And I'm like, I will go Google search like, okay, yeah, what is she up to? Because, you know, she first black president VP or first black vice president of the United States of America. So, you know, I'm very interested in what she's doing and how she's handling things. And again, I found myself too often asking, where is Kamala? On top of her VP visibility, which I thought it was dope that like out the gate, she got a lot of support, right? I thought the Divine Nine support was very important at the time. Just to see like a lot of people just get behind her right away was great. But I'm not sure like what happened. Like that support failed to gain the momentum that it needed. So I felt like it would have been great for her to go up against some people, for her to earn it in the eyes of not just the party, but also earning the nomination of the people. Because when the people behind you, like that's when you really had momentum to go on and to like make some stuff happen. So it would have been nice to see a primary. I thought Kamala was cool, but it would have been nice to see a primary and see her like win the fight against her other contemporaries. I feel like holding a primary could have legitimized her position, allowing her to demonstrate her capabilities publicly and connect with voters directly. Also, she had 110 days to campaign. Donald Trump has been campaigning since basically January 6th, right? Literally, he ain't stopped, right? We hearing about Donald Trump all the time from stuff that he's saying on Truth Social, right? He's gaining allies because of the things that they don't like on this side, the whole nine, right? So having only 110 days to even make a case was negative on her end because, to be honest, like, Biden should have stepped down earlier. We'll talk a little bit more about Biden as we go on, but I think it was a lot of people who were in agreement with that and felt the same way on both sides of the aisle. Him stepping down so late hurt her in the long run and also hurt the party's chance of even winning. To be honest, right, I'm an everyday person like everybody else. And so I don't really have all of the time in the world to do these deep dive analysis about every little thing that the campaign is talking about. So honestly, from my perspective, one of the second misstep and the second mistake that the Democrats made was that the focus was too hard on women's reproductive rights. Every single time that I would see any type of clips, it was always referencing women's reproductive rights. While I am on the side of women having their reproductive rights, um, I just felt like I heard it too much. I literally heard it too much. Like it was like everywhere, all at once, all the time. That's just something that just don't get me excited. I get it. I know why. I understand it fully. And I just felt like I heard that way too much. And I'm really trying to figure out what's going on at the grocery store. Now, to also look on the other side, Trump kind of made a strategic sidestep, in my opinion. He delegated the issue of women's reproductive rights to the state. So basically, that kind of neutralized his take on it because he says, I'm for this thing, not for this thing. But hey, you know what? Depending on where you live at, they decide. Cool, whatever.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land.
So because he did that, they're trying to say, you know, women won't have rights, women won't have rights, women won't have rights. And the whole time he like, man, well, listen, I gave that power to the states. The states can decide. And that's air wasted, right? Now that's air wasted from my purview, right? It's air completely wasted. Like, okay, they gave it to the states. So, hey, it is what it is. Also, too, to add on to the fact that they really began wasting air on that conversation, majority of Americans have already made up their mind whether they're going to be pro-life or pro-choice, right? It is not engaging any new voters, anybody new. At this point, it's propaganda on both sides, right? Literally, it's propaganda. Like it didn't move anything forward to continuously focus on that, right? And I feel like this contributed to the missed opportunity to talk about broader issues a little bit more than we were, right? Like the economy, housing, even climate change, right? Even climate change, because we had some huge hurricanes in Florida, right? Also, there are parts of Florida that are on its way underwater as well. So you could have even talked about that. You could have talked about more issues that the like people are feeling and seeing every single day. Like this is what people want to be changed and uplifted. Number three, she did not counter false narratives early enough and left that misinformation unchecked. And because it was left unchecked, it spread. There are things about Kamala Harris that I had my people that I know, right, my family members, my friends, that they are just saying about her and saying about her. And I'm like, wow, like people are really misinformed. And I literally see nothing coming from her campaign, nothing coming from her messaging. And then people started to like debunk some of the things that people were saying, like how she locked up thousands and thousands of people for like marijuana, and just the list goes on. I don't have all of the points in front of me, but that was one of the biggest things. But then also there are a lot of conspiracy theories as well. A lot of people are really believing a lot of conspiracy theories with little to no proof, and that's concerning as well. And I just feel like when somebody has a public presence and you see them all the time and they talking all the time, it's hard to have conspiracy theories against them, especially when they're constantly addressing them. Like, for instance, again, you look at Trump. Trump is always talking about everything, and he'll even mention a conspiracy theory like, yeah, like boom, boom, boom. And you're like, oh, damn, he actually addressed that thing. You think that they're not going to address it, but it's like, bro, nah, that's completely fake. So, yeah, people are often taking clips, sound bites, and they're just running with them. Sometimes some of this stuff is completely fake. Like I saw not a lot of deep fakes, but I saw a couple of them. It was kind of weird, kind of crazy. And she did eventually address some of those things on some podcasts and on some platforms. But I just felt like by the time she addressed them, people already made up their mind. They already internalized the false narratives, and it was too late, right? Like it was already too late. So, yeah, definitely should have addressed some of the misinformation in real time. I think that's something for people to do in the future. And it don't even matter, right? Like I'm seeing so many bots out there nowadays. Like what's a bot? Like sometimes the bots even respond. You'll respond and somebody else, they'll respond in some gibberish or like, it's like, bro, what the heck? Like pro Trump bots, pro Kamala bots. And I'm just like, well, hey, somebody, you get a bot to debunk the bullshit. Like straight up, get that type of bot, get a truth bot. Shit. Like it's valid to oppose anybody's presidency, right, for whatever reasons, but doing it with a lot of misinformation is just weird, right? It's weird and it really shows like a decline in society and just like the mindsets of people. I don't think it's a good idea to ever let false narratives spread. At a certain point, you got to nip certain things in the bud, like straight up. Now, number 4, choosing Biden in the first place. Choosing Biden over all the other candidates in 2020, I feel like was a mistake. First off, Joe Biden represented the status quo that everybody was tired of, especially in 2020. It was like, we do not want a candidate that is going to represent the status quo. I think people were ready for fresh ideas, and there were actually candidates who had innovative and fresh ideas with forward thinking perspectives who might have even energized voters a little bit more than Biden. Personally, I feel like Andrew Yang had the best set of new ideas during that 2020 presidential run, right? He had the best set of new ideas. I'm not sure if he had what it takes to actually become president, right? And that's nothing to him, but just like the perception of what America as a whole collective wants for their president. Also, I think this was the major key that the Democrats completely just lost out on. Bernie Sanders had a movement, the movement of democratic socialism, right? It was a lot of people behind Bernie Sanders at that point. It was a lot of people supporting him from his last run before 2020. He had a huge movement. And I feel like the Democrats picked the party over the people. And that was the problem, right? They picked the party over the people. And they've done that multiple times, right? But I think this was the critical error. I feel like people are ready for new ideas, fresh perspectives. Those things reinvigorate people, right? Bernie Sanders was talking to the everyday working American, right? And saying, I'm about to fight for you. I want to make life easier for you. I want you to be able to work, enjoy your life, all of that good stuff. We're getting away from the status quo. And again, Democratic Party chose the person that represented the status quo, which was Joe Biden. And then the other part of it is that Joe Biden had a public mental decline in front of people.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you.
God bless you all. There's not a single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman.
I mean, really, he just got old, right? He just got old. He just got old, and his oldness caught up to him a little bit faster than Trump's oldness caught up to him. And we saw it, and like we was like, man, like even people trying to defend him is like, man, yeah, bro, So that in itself tells you that we should have picked another candidate in 2020, right? Because you look at Bernie Sanders, he's still kicking. You look at Andrew Yang, of course, younger dude. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. We got to get away from the status quo. Also, another thing that contributed in 2020 to Trump losing was just that high anti-Trump sentiment. I feel like voters were so fed up with Donald Trump every day coming out saying some bullshit about the COVID-19 pandemic. Like, honestly, he did not handle it well at all. We'll be raring to go by Easter. And like, what, 9, 11, 12, 15 months later or whatever time, just telling people to, I think he said something about injecting bleach. Yeah, that was a time, bro. And then like, he got to come out and talk like every day to the American people. So yeah, and then what, we had the hydroxychlorophyll or whatever, chloroquil, I don't know. We had all these different things going on. People voted against Trump in 2020, right? Straight up. They voted straight up against Donald Trump. They was tired of him. So I feel like a Bernie Sanders could have won. I'm not sure about an Andrew Yang, to be honest. So yeah, they should not have chose Biden. Also, right, because, and I think a lot of the American people they don't fully understand that a lot of the decisions that both the Trump and the Biden administration made to print out the huge amount of money that they printed and also closing down the country contributed to the inflation that we see today. And a lot of people blame the inflation that we see today on the Biden administration, right? Which, I mean, there probably is some blame to take, but they're not placing that same blame on Donald Trump. And so people in the moment are having the feeling that this is Biden's presidency, his administration, groceries is high, gas is high, everything is high, rent is high, everything is high, and it's killing me, right? And Kamala goes on a talk show and tells the people that she will not change anything from the Biden's administration. And a lot of people saw that as problematic. People are already frustrated with the current economy that was tied to the pandemic spending, and her making that alignment with Biden saying that it was not much that she would change was very much less appealing. I feel like that was probably one of the worst things that she could have did. I think it's a way that you can go about that. I think that she could have been like, man, Biden, he's doing the best that he can. And of course, if I'm in there, I'm going to have some new ideas, some fresh ideas. I want to move everything forward. And we're going to drastically improve things from where we're at now. Like, she could have literally placed the blame on Trump. Like, yeah, okay, we're still fixing the economy from Donald Trump's overspending during the pandemic. She could have said something like that and then been like, I'm gonna come in with new ideas, new fresh ideas right now. My presidency just started, so we're really ironing some of those things out. But really, we're trying to get this economy right, get some money in y'all pockets, help the American people build wealth, especially the young new voters. Like, she could have came out like that, it would have been up. But she talked about, yeah, it ain't much I would change. And people is at the store right now, like with 3 bags, and those 3 bags is $216. So like, you come on. That was yes, you definitely should change something. Archon number 5. The Democrats are just out of touch with people's real concerns, and economic issues took a backseat. The Democrats prioritize trans and abortion rights, like I said earlier. They failed to adequately address financial struggles like inflation, rising costs, and job insecurity. She did not uplift those issues high enough. And I think that really cost her. Now, don't get me wrong, she spoke on the economy. I vividly remember it. I'm also a person who's tapped in and I'm actually looking for some of these things. So sometimes we got to look at it through the eyes of a person who's not looking for these things. How do we get to the people who's not looking for it? Right? How do we get our messages out there? So I did see her address the economy, address how home ownership and stuff like that. But when I talk to people outside who like don't follow politics at all, but they about to go vote because of how they feeling right now, they didn't see that. They didn't see those conversations. All right. They didn't see those clips. And again, she only had 110 days to run for president of the United States, while Donald Trump has been running literally since he was voted out of office. So like he already have a lot of momentum. So we gotta look at it like that as well. But yeah, people were just looking for leadership, right? They're looking for leadership. They're looking for their economic survival, right? Some people are looking to thrive. So I think it was just like really speaking hope into the American people about their pockets. And just going back to the public frustrations that people felt. A lot of people were feeling like the Democrats were actually ignoring some of those issues, right? They didn't seem like immediate priorities. Again, all we're hearing is women's reproductive rights like every single last conversation. Like, I think there has to be a wherewithal and an understanding that people have already picked their side on that and it's time to move on. What is the vision? And that's actually something we're going to get to a little bit later in the video as well. Is like, okay, cool. These are issues that we've been debating already for the past 8 years, right? What is the new vision that we can look forward to? Like, and even if the vision is going backward, is better than how we're feeling right now, right? Because people are getting paid more, but it don't even feel like it. So yeah, it just wasn't a lot of conversation around that. And if it was, which I didn't really see a lot of it, I did see it, but it needed to just be more of that, right? Like what's resonating with everybody's hearts and pockets. Okay, next. Number 6, she ignored some popular platforms to really connect with the people, right? I feel like this election was definitely won, like influence wise, it was won on the podcast, not on the news. There are a lot of missed opportunities that I feel like she could have taken advantage of. For instance, they have financial literacy platforms. You have Earn Your Leisure. You have Wall Street Chapter. You got Aristotle Investments, right? These are platforms where they're talking about money, right? And also, these are Black American people talking about money to Black American audiences and also adjacent audiences. For instance, I've been to events and I'll tell you, they sell out, right? Every event is like sold out. And on top of every event being sold out, it's a lot of Black people there, but it's also a lot of Latinos. It's a lot of Latinos. It's a lot of like just a plethora of people. It's not just only Black people. So I felt like talking money with those folk would have been great. Talking money, the economy, they would have asked you some very important key questions. And I feel like that should have been a high priority because the economy is a high priority. You look at the strategy should be look at the priorities of the people and go talk on podcasts that everybody is watching that are in alignment with that. This would have been a perfect thing. I know Kamala only had 110 days. Again, I'm looking at this whole picture of like the things that she could have done to talk to the correct demographics of people. Like I said, even Afrotech. Those platforms talk money, jobs, economy, the future, vision, all of that. She could have answered those questions and that could have been clips for the people to digest and consume. But Afrotech, InvestFest, all of them, pull up. Very important. Those spaces are pivotal for addressing financial literacy just in general. You could have answered all of the important financial literacy, entrepreneurship, employment, and economic questions there, right? For all people, right? It's a Black platform, but for all people, those clips would have circulated to all people. So yeah. And also, again, she had like in her plan for Black men, she definitely could have really highlighted that plan on some of those platforms, right? We'll get into the Black man plan a little bit later as well, but the Black man plan talked about apprenticeships, money for entrepreneurs, right? Pipelines for education and employment, right? It was a lot of things, a lot of positive things in that plan. And honestly, it was more than just for Black men, right? It was like, yo, we created this for everybody, but with you in mind. And honestly, if you're running for president of the United States, that's like the mindset that you have to have, right? When you want to uplift certain communities and certain people. Also, I feel like she missed out on a couple relatable platforms, Vlad TV. I know a lot of people in the Black community got they thing with Vlad, and I get it, right? But at the same time, him or even like Say Cheese, right? Like old boy from Say Cheese is pretty dope too. but these interviews show the human side of people, right? Like literally, when you look at Vlad TV, you look at Say Cheese and some of the other ones, right? They literally show the human side of all of their guests, from gangsters to leaders to businessmen to rappers to like all these different people. I think Kamala could have used this space to share her upbringing, her challenges, her journey, right? Fostering her connection with the people who really value that authenticity, right? You look at the Flagrant podcast, right? The Flagrant podcast with Trump, they really humanized him in a crazy way. They talked about fatherhood. They talked about like just some of the things that he think about leadership. Like it was a lot of like just regular questions that were asked that we saw like a human, just a human thing, right? It wasn't like, okay, this is the box of questions that we gonna get, right? I think going on some of those niche podcasts, like mental health podcasts and other specialized niches, and I say mental health because in her agenda for Black men, she had a emphasis on mental health. And I think that going on a mental health podcast would have definitely given her the platform to fully express her just intrinsic thoughts and feelings towards mental health, and also to lay out her plan on how she plans to address those things. But again, we didn't really like, we saw a little bit of it, but I just feel like we ain't see enough. And again, she only had 110 days, right? Or around there, whatever, somewhere around 110 days, 110 days, whatever. So I get it, but these are things that just needed to be done, right? The Democratic Party, y'all just not tapped in a way that y'all should be if y'all really wanted to win this election, right? Because we knew that like people did not want to vote for Biden, right? Like me, I did not want to vote for Biden. I was like, bro, why do that? Why are they propping this man up to be in this election again? So that's just how I was feeling about it. And then when Kamala came through, like I was like, okay, cool. Like the Divine Nine, I was like, okay. I was watching it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's see what she talks about. What's her policies, right? I was a little apprehensive at first because for one, I didn't really see her that much, and hold on, whatever. Also, the Joe Rogan podcast, bro, that is literally one of the most watched platforms out. Joe Rogan is getting more views than everybody and they mama. So I'm confused as to why y'all thought that was more of a risk than reward. Like y'all should have known, right? Democratic Party, Kamala team, y'all should have known that Joe Rogan, regardless of whatever conversation that y'all had, any press is good press, right? There are a lot of things that she could have talked about on that platform. Again, Joe Rogan used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter. Like, she could have talked about some of those things, right? On top of Joe Rogan being a Bernie Sanders supporter in the past, right? Before Trump, right? Being on the left, right? Beside all of that, she could have gotten into a damn argument with the nigga, right? She could have just argued with him the whole time, right? And if what she was arguing had a factual base to it, then that would have been positive for her. 100 million people would have saw that. Her arguing with Joe Rogan would have gotten way more views than any of the podcasts that Trump did. And her just showing that she got the smoke to argue with somebody, and really invoke her will, put her foot down, all of that, that could have even opened up the gates and opened people's minds and be like, damn, I mean, she went at bro. Like, like, damn, okay, she told him a thing or two, right? And it's the biggest platform. So like if you go and walk in there with your truth, it don't really matter what tactics they try, how they try to like slide you or whatever. All that matters is that you went on there, you had your truth. Your truth was rooted in whatever facts that you researched, that you experienced, that And if you had did that, I think that it would have bore fruit, regardless of if it was a good interview or an argument or whatever. So yeah. In the future, though, I do feel like politicians need to like be on podcasts and have long form, free form conversations that aren't really constricted based on whatever agenda or whatever the party is trying to do. I think those things can keep folks visible, relatable, and connected to people's daily concerns because these podcasts are just asking questions that are connected with those things. So 7, right-wing influencers are gaining ground unchallenged. So there is a spike in right-wing influencers, right? A huge spike. Because of this spike in right-wing influencers, they are literally debating, trashing, talking down on left-leaning issues all day long. Literally all your clips is just negative stuff about whatever left-wing issues that there are. And again, some of those issues, as I already said, are not even aligning with the people. So now you just got people, not only are people like, man, I don't really care too much about this issue right now. So people are already feeling like that. But then on top of it, you got like 6 podcasters trashing all of those ideas. And you got 3 guys on the left that's like bringing some sense to the arguments just on a whole. Like you probably got like Van Lathan and like 2 others against like 15 other podcasters that people really like to watch and that people are really into. So that's another thing that contributed to her and the Democrats losing is that it's been a spike in right-wing influencers, right? And they're talking to the issues that people can see and feel on a day-to-day basis, all right? Go figure. There's just a lack of efforts on the left, right? They like the ultra polished, only gonna have conversations with people on my level or whatever. And I think that is costing the people on the left. Like, I think people on the left need to get into some arguments and they need to, like, come on. Like, it looks sad. Honestly, like, the aftermath of this election, like, from the folk on the left, it just looks sad. Like people on the right, when the Democrats won in 2020, they was still all making content. They was on it. Like people on the left is just like, bro, like, I don't even know why I support these folks. Like for real, like the messaging is just off. I feel like the Democrats, like some of the missed opportunities when we talk about these influencers and stuff like that, again, Kamala and other Democrats should have went on more moderate leaning influencer podcasts and stuff like that. Like it would have been dope to see Obama on Joe Rogan, right? Like I think that Obama going on Joe Rogan, standing in his truth, like I think that'll be something positive, right? Along with Kamala and whoever else. I just feel like when you don't talk to the people, when you don't talk to people who's talking to the people, because at that point, like you're a politician, like you gotta talk to people who talking to the people. And he's literally talking to a lot of people every month, every day, whatever. So I think standing next to him, talking to him, having conversations, standing in their truth. And the thing is, you gotta know how the viewers work, right? This is how the viewers work. The viewers are gonna see something, right? They might see an argument and 10 people are going to all see something different, right? Like if you get into an argument with a podcaster, then what's going to happen is like it might be 4 people that actually agree with you. You're going to walk away with 4 new folks in your camp or on your fan base by arguing your points with this person because they're going to see their life experiences is going to be connected to your points, just like their life experience is going to be connected to their points, right? So that's the missed opportunity. Like you can't be playing it safe all the time. And again, this failure to engage with people who are talking to the people and really to engage with the voters at large resulted in a loss of 6.8 million voters or whatever, right? It's a lot of people who didn't vote this go round, right? Or some fishy might have happened, I don't know. But yeah, I know some people who was really not motivated to vote. Like for me, racism and folk who make racists feel emboldened is always going to be a deal breaker for me. So it's super easy not to mess with Trump, to be honest. He won the presidency and now we're literally seeing like a whole bunch of just racist shit happening.
At a recent school board meeting, students talked about how scared they were, given what happened outside Bella Ivory's classroom during election week.
And it became utterly impossible to just ignore it. From 8:30 to 2:30 all week, being at school felt like being in a nightmare. What the black students and Miss Bella had to deal with that week had absolutely nothing to do with politics. That week, being stormed, being called the N-word, being shunned, all because you were black, became the normal.
In recent weeks, I have seen racial slurs scrawled across the walls of our bathrooms, hateful rhetorics being spoken by fellow students in the hallways.
What's good, y'all? Just popping in on some post-video edits like I always do. This is kind of like the pattern when Trump is elected and he's in office. I mean, again, I'm hoping for things to actually get better, right? From his presidential campaign and whatever initiatives that he want to put forward. I mean, it's in everybody's best interest, right? So yeah. And then also, I know that I mentioned that it was 14 reasons. I had to cut this video in half. So hopefully the next video is already up. If not, please be patient with me. It's coming, y'all. With that being said, peace.